Okay, so the first type of poem is we have the ballad. Poems are frequently sung, or at least they are intended to be sung. Meaning to say, pwede dili kantahon, pwede itula lang siya literally, but the moment the poem was written, it is supposedly, or the purpose of it, or the intention of it is to be sung. So kung ako magsulat ko og ballad poem, bahalag dili ninyo kantahon for as long as I myself as the poet of that poem intended that particular write-up to be sung. So that's the description of a ballad. And often the topic of ballad or the subject matter of ballads is love. Okay, let's continue. So again, the subject matter of ballads usually, not at all times, but usually, it is about love. These ballads tell a story and often of mystical nature. Just as a song does, ballads tend to have a refrain that repeats at various intervals throughout. So since songs, if you remember, songs are one of the types of ballads. I mean, types of poems. Okay? It is under lyric poetry, if you remember. That was discussed during ELT 311 course. Songs are under lyric poetry. So as with ballad, it's just that the ballad tells a story. Okay? So it doesn't mean that because a song is a love song, it is automatically ballad. If you will try to search for ballads, actually most of the titles of ballads start with the word ballad. For example, Ballad of a Mother's Heart, Ballad of Hemingway. So usually pagka magsulat, actually I have not encountered pa a ballad nga walay ballad ang title. So, mga titles usually, it reveals the type of poem. For example, sonnet. So, sonnet 14, naadjud siya word na sonnet. So as with ballad. So, it will not be hard for us to classify this one. Okay? Next one, we have elegy. Elegies express a lament, often over the death of a loved one. This makes elegies especially popular for funerals. Okay, elegies are poems. So there are a lot of people who are creating poems intended for the person close to their heart who passed away. Pwede in Filipino terminologies, pag-alala sa namatayan. Okay? So, or pag-ala-ala sa namatay. So, mga ingon ana. So, there are a lot of poems which are written for the purpose of expressing grievance for someone who passed away. Okay? So, those poems belong to elegy. Okay? Some elegies are written not only to be read out loud, they can be put to music and sung. Basically, actually, um, a song is a poem. Before it is sung, it is a poem. It is a written poem. So it just so happened that people are fond of putting tune, putting music into the lyrics or into the written poems, and that is the reason why we come up with poems. But elegies can be read out loud or it can be sung at the same time. Depende siya. Therefore, ang elegies, unlike songs, ballad ug elegies do not have specific tune. It depends on the person who will be presenting it, how they are going to put tune on it. Okay, it depends on them. Dili parehas sa songs na naay specific tune nga sundugon na lang nimo. Okay, next one we have the free verse. This is a type of poetry that does not require any rhyme scheme or meter. Meaning to say, pwede siya bisag pila lang ka syllable sa isa ka line, pwede bisag unsa lang na sound ang ginadala for each line. It does not maintain a pattern of sound or number of syllables or even a number of stanzas. Poems written in free verse tend to employ other types of creative language such as alliteration, words that begin with the same sound, or assonance, the repetition of vowel sounds. So unlike the closed form poetry, this is open form kasi. The closed form poetry rhymed at the last syllable of each line. Nasa gina-maintain na rhyme. Katong rhyme scheme. For example, ABAB, ABBA, AABB, so on and so forth. Okay, but for free verse, wala siya ingon ana. Ang last syllable niya do not rhyme. Instead, there are rhymes within lines. So, ang technicalities sa free verse, it doesn't mean na kay free, wala na rhyme, um, wala na sound. Again, always remember that the rhyme and rhyme scheme are different. Rhyme scheme is the pattern at the last syllable of each line. Rhyme refers to the repetition of sound within lines. Okay, so muna difference sa rhyme scheme o sa rhyme lang. So a free verse do not have rhyme scheme but it has rhymes. So pwede ng alliteration, assonance, repetition, consonants, kato sila. Okay? Next one is haiku. Haiku is a Japanese form of poetry. Sa ilan ni nag-originate, gisundog lang siya sa other nationalities, which is composed of 3 non-rhyming lines. Meaning to say, walay rhyme ang mga lines. Pero tulo lang kabuok. So, ang haiku, 3 lines rigid siya. The first and third lines have 5 syllables each and the second line has 7 syllables. So, ang pattern niya is 5, 7, 5. 5 syllables ang first line, 7 syllables ang second line, 5 syllables na pod ang last line. Pero again, wala siya rhyme. They often express feelings and thoughts about nature. Please take note of the word often. Pag often gani pasabot kasagaran pero dili tanan. So, pwede malahi iyang topic, pero kasagaran, it is an expression of feelings and thoughts about nature. However, you could write a poem about any subject that you would like to in this form. Meaning to say, kung kamo, pasulaton mo og poem nga free lang, walay criteria, pwede ra tulo ka lines, you can write a haiku. Perhaps the most famous haiku is Basho's Old Pond. Okay, next one, we have imagery. This type of poems work to draw a picture in the mind of the reader in order to give an extremely powerful image of what the writer is talking about. They work to intensify the senses of the reader. Now, take note that imagery is a type of poem and also imagery is an element of poems. It's just that pag ang isa ka poem is daghan na kaayo siya og mga kanang from beginning to end puro images lang gyud ang ginagamit, mao ma-classify siya as imagery. However, all poems have imagery because poems one of the criteria or one of the criteria in or considerations in composing a poem, mapa-free man na siya or mapa-closed form, is the imagery. So, kung walay images ang isa ka poem, it will be disqualified as poems. So, basically, ang imagery, element siya sa poem. Dili siya pwede mawala. Next, we have the limerick. A limerick is a poem that is often silly or whimsical, written in 5 lines with an AABBA rhyme scheme. Actually, na-mention naman ni siya, just a refreshment. Na-mention naman ni siya last week, if you remember. Okay? And this type of poems often tell a short or humorous story. And pastoral. This type of poem, like the haiku, nature is often at the center of these types of poems. Meaning to say, ang focus pud niya nature pud gihapon. Pero kasagaran man gud aning sa pastoral, ang target gud nila kay about sa mga nagabantay og kanang mga hayop. In general, pastoral poetry will focus on describing a rural place, bukid, but the terms will be peaceful and endearing. Actually, mga pastoral pud nang kanang about sa bukid ng mga kanta, like magtanim ay di biro. You will feel at ease after reading these types of poems. Many pastoral poems are written about shepherds, matong gingon ganiha, nagabuhi og mga hayop. They are written as a series of rhyming couplets. Take note, tag 2 lines, rhyming couplets. Ang pastoral, tag 2 lines lang kada stanza, tapos nag-rhyme to siya every 2 lines. Ay every stanza nag-rhyme siya, tapos 2 lines lang. So if you want to write poems under pastoral, pwede kaayo siya. Pero you just have to make sure nga ang number of lines na follow ninyo. Tapos na ay rhyming. Next, we have the sonnet. Again, as I have said a while ago, dili lisod i-classify ang sonnets kay pareha sa ballad, they bear the name sonnet in their title. Sonnet contains 14 lines, typically with 2 rhyming stanzas known as a rhyming couplet at the end. Again, this was mentioned last week. There are several types of sonnets, including Italian, also known as Petrarchan, Spenserian, English, or Shakespearean sonnet. So, kana sila, bisan lahi-lahi na sila nga types, their similarity is they have 14 lines. Tapos, ang pattern sa 14 lines is 4, 8, 12, meaning to say, ang first 3 ay ang tulo ka stanzas niya kay naka 4 lines. Tapos, ang last niya is katong 12 lines na lang. Again, this was mentioned last meeting. So, bali 4 siya ka stanzas tanan. Tulo ka tag-upat ka lines, tapos ang last stanza is 2 na lang ka lines. Maong 14 lines tanan. Next, we have the terza rima. Okay, the lines in these types of poems are arranged in what are called terceps. Itong tagtulo, if you still remember, tagtulo ka buok lines. It does not mean that the poem is only 3 lines long. There can be multiple groups of 3 lines like the haiku. There are certain syllable requirements as most poems written in terza rima have lines of 10 or 11 syllables. So, terza rima is not a haiku, take note, and the haiku is not a terza rima. The difference is that si haiku, isa lang yun siya ka stanza with 3 lines, nga 575 ang syllables. Ang terza rima, bisan pila ka stanzas, nga tagtulo kasi ka lines each stanza, tapos usually 10 or 11 syllables kada line. Okay, wait lang, kay nana po'y nag-join. Okay. Any questions about sa type of poems? Nabi mga pangutana or clarifications? Sige, please proceed. Hello? Hello? What is the question or what is the clarification? Yes, what is the question? Okay. Free verse do not have specific topics. Pwede ka maghimo og imong own topic. Tapos at the same time, pwede pud ka buot kung pila ka buok number of stanzas imuhang gusto. That's why ginatawag siya free verse. Pwede one stanza, pwede bisag unsa nga topic. For as long as gi-follow tong requirement nga naay rhyme, nga sounds lang, like consonants, assonants, and alliteration. Okay, other questions? Na pa ba? Mm-mm. Sige, sige, proceed. Kailangan na siya i-appeal. Actually, I just gave you few types of poems that you can use in composing your own poems. These are just the easiest types of morning. The reason why I only included these poems is kanilang man good ang pinaka-common ug kani ang isa sa pinaka-sayon. Mga pinaka-sayon ng mga poems nga pwede ninyo pilian when you write your own poems. So that's the reason why. If there are actually daghan pa kayong mga poems, and if there are some poems that you want to use other than what are presented, okay ra jud kayo na siya, wala jud siya problema. The purpose of this overview is just for you to be oriented that yes, although there are a lot of poems, we cannot say that they belong to one classification only. Daghan na silang klase ng mga poems. At least you will just have the knowledge nga ay lahi-lahi day ang poems abi na kog maura na siya ingon ani etc. And if you remember, di ba, ang epic, appeal to sa to ang topic gani before, epic is also a poem. Pero wala na to siya gi-appeal ani because it is a very complicated type of poem. Okay? If you still want to know more about the types of poems, pwede kaayo ninyo i-recall or i-review tong PowerPoint presentation nato during ELT 311 na topics na ato didto daghan to. Naka-enumerate to didto ang mga different types of poems. Okay? Sige, other concerns or other questions? Mm-mm. Pard Pardon? Putol-putol lagi yung tingog. Hello? Okay. Ang enclosed rhyme ug ang Petrarchan nga sonnet dili pareha. Why? Enclosed rhyme is a type of rhyme. Petrarchan sonnet is a type of poem. Meaning to say, pwede ta maggamit og enclosed rhyme sa sonnet. Okay? Type of rhyme lang man ang enclosed rhyme. Dili man siya type of poem. So lahi silang duha. But we can use the type of rhyme nga enclosed rhyme sa sonnet. Walay problema. But again, talking about whether they are similar or different, the answer is yes, they are different. Okay? They are not the same. Again, enclosed kanang mga rhymes tanan, katong rhymes nga atong gidiscuss, kato sila, those are just elements of poems. Ang kaning atong gidiscuss karon, types ni sila of poems. Pasabot, katutanan atong gidiscuss last week, from sound to rhythm, to meter, to rhyme, kato sila tanan, pwede na to sa i-apply in writing different types of poems. So, posible ta makakita og enclosed rhymes sa sonnet. Okay. Other concerns? You're welcome. Other question? Okay. I guess that's clear. Let's have the 10 poem writing tips. Very quick lang siya. Pulo raman siya kabuok. So, we will just discuss them one by one. This was referred from online references. First tip, we have to know our goal. We need to determine what is our purpose in doing something. Kung nag-eskwela ka, nganong ni-eskwela ka, kung nagtrabaho ka, nganong ni-trabaho ka. Because if you do not know your goal, mao nay rason nga daghan wala nagtarong og eskwela because first and foremost wala sila'y tumong. Kana ganing ni eskwela lang ka kay gipa-eskwela ka, ni eskwela lang ka kay gusto imong ginikanan nga mo eskwela ka, etc. Wala kay personal goal, wala kay personal target, mao nang daghan ang di magpasa og output. But if you know your goals, you will do something in order for you to reach your goal. Same as with writing, dili pwede nga musugod tag sulat nga wala ta kabalo kung unsay gusto nato mahitabo pag human natog sulat. Okay? If you don't know where you're going, how can you get there? Kung wala ka kabalo kung asa ka padulong, saan mo pagadto didto? So you need to know first how to go there. Okay? You need to know what you are trying to accomplish before you begin any project. Okay? Ingon ana ang process of poem. Kumbaga ba, unsaon nimo pagkabalo kung asa ka moadto kung wala kay goal. For example, gusto ka mo biyahe, gusto ka maglaag-laag, gusto ka mag-travel, unsa pa na ang mga gusto nimo. Pero wala kay specific target kung unsa gyud nga lugar ang gusto nimo adtuan. Lahi ang tao nga moingon mo nang taman rag drawing. Lahi ang tao na moingon nga gusto ko mulaag sa ang uban moingon na gusto ko maligog dagat. Pero lahi ang uban moadto kog sama lugma maligo kog dagat. That is more specific, meaning to say ikaw personally kabalo jud ka kung unsa jud gusto nimo. Dili lang maligog dagat but specific didto gyud sa samal. Okay? So, same with writing poems. Ay, pasulaton minimum og poem. The question is, unsa may gusto nimo pag human nimong sulat sa poem? Unsay output nga gina-expect nimo? Do you want your poem to explore a personal experience, protest a social injustice, describe the beauty of nature, or play with language in a certain way? If you remember, daghan kitag mga poems before katong sa ELT 311 nga ang mga topic is about sa martial law, mga ingon ana, mga crimes, mga injustices, about freedom, kana sila. Now, how about us? Musundog-sundog lang ba ta? Wala ba tay personal na goal nga ako pag magsulat kog poem ingon ani ang gusto nako na topic, dapat naa tay personal target. Okay, that's tip number 1. If you want your poem or if you want to create an effective poem or if you want to write a poem easily, tip number 1, know your goal. Second, avoid cliches. When we talk about cliches, kanining mga lines nga common kaayo, gamit na gamit, gasgas ta kaayo, kanang tanang tao nga makadungog kay makasabot na. The reason why cliches are advised to be avoided is because when people read cliches in our write-up, familiar naman kayo na sa ilaha, they know about it, they have a hint, you give them a clue. They know already what will happen toward the end of your poem. So pwede na nila dili tiwason ang tula. Now, if you want your reader to engage themselves into reading the poem or finishing reading the poem, you have to avoid cliches. Para sa anang busy as a bee, tired as a dog, beet red, blind as a bat, it's like a bird, it's like a horse, kanamaingon ana. These are very common. Tapos, dili lang siya about sa commonality sa language. It's about also the commonality of structure. Nga basta kay kuan, basta kay simile, ay ingon ani na basta kay na ay metaphor. So, wala jud kay specific nga target nimo kung unsa jud gusto nimo nga language nga gamiton. How to avoid cliches? Unsaon man nato para maiwasan nato ning mga cliches? What should we do? So, there are 3 steps in improving our cliches. First, determine what the cliched phrase is trying to say. So, for example, you have busy as a bee. Kana imong napili nga cliche. Tapos naka-realize ka, ay, kumo naman kay ni nga structure. Uy, wala na may kanang bag-o ani. ginagamit naman ning ingon ani nga composition perme. So first thing na imong buhaton, you will ask yourself, unsay meaning ani? What is the meaning of this particular cliche? Busy as a bee, unsay pasabot ana? Then you will come up with the realization nga busy as a bee kanang busy kaayo. Dili ka puyo, mo ganing banha kaayo kay busy kaayo sige panginabuhi. So therefore, extremely busy mo na imong nahuna-hunaan nga description sa busy as a bee. Second step, think of an original way to describe what the cliche is trying to describe. What things are associated with being busy? For example, busy as a bee. Gusto ka mangita og mga object nga makita sa tao nga connected sa word nga busy. So naguna-huna ka, unsa may busy ha? Unsa may mga object ha nga makapabisi sa mga tao? Pwede mabisi ang tao og panilhig. Pwede na busy ang tao og panlaba. And all objects nga mahuna-hunaan nimo nga konektado sa busy. Dili ta pwede mo answer og work, job, school, dili ta pwede mo answer ana. Later on you will understand why. We have to identify specific object, specific action nga naay object para makaingon ta nga very concrete ang or imaginative kanang makita sa tao. For example, nakahuna-huna ka nga, ay, ang tao nga magsigig practice kung unsaon pagtugtog ang isa ka kanta, busy kayo na siya. When someone is preparing or rehearsing to play a song, grabe, dugay kay na siya mahuman. Dili na pwede isa ka oras lang, duha ka oras lang, labi nag-concert, labi nag-public show, bisod kaayo na. Kailangan jud nag enough time, so you will be busy. So, a writer can think of, ay, pwede siguro nga instead na mo ingon kong busy as a bee, instead na bee akong gamiton, kuan na lang kanang pag mag-play og violin. So we can have like, I feel like a bow fiddling an Irish reel. Bow dira, kana ganing stick na ginagamit pag mag-play og violin. Bow man ang tawag ana. Fiddling meaning playing. Okay? Playing the song. So for example, nagpractice kag violin about a song nga pertikalisod. Irish reel is a very complicated has a very complicated tune. This is a national or cultural dance sa mga Irish people. So this is a very hard this has a very hard tune. So when one will be practicing this cultural tune, maglisod jud siya. So it will take time. That is why mas nindot siya gamiton kaysa sa busy as a bee because the moment niingon kag busy as a bee, dali ra kay sila kasabot. Pero pag gamit nimo I feel like a bow fiddling an Irish reel, before nila masabtan, kailangan pa nila imaginon unsa day sitwasyon anang bow fiddling an Irish reel. I-research pa nila unsa nang Irish reel, unsa nang bow fiddling, etc. para masabtan nila. Therefore, mas ma-eager sila to dig deeper sa imong poem. Katong busy as a bee, kabalo naman sila unsay buyog ug nganong nakaingon ka nga busy ng buyugan na. Okay? So that is the reason why we have to improve cliches. And these are the 3 steps in improving cliches. Next tip, avoid sentimentality. Pag moingon tag sentimentality, this is dominated by a blunt appeal to the emotions of pity and love. Popular subjects are puppies, grandparents, and young lovers. Common sa tao pag mag-express og emotion and feelings sentimentally. Pasabot katong mga butang or mga tao nga makapa-remind sa iya about love, mercy, pity, kanang mga emotional related kaayo. If ingon ana nga to ang target sa atong poem, makawala siya gana. Ako personally, there are times that when I listen to a sad song, I stop playing that song because I do not like it. There are a lot of people nga dili kaayo naga-play og sad songs, especially when they don't feel okay because they don't want to cry. So if kita as writers of poems, ato ang i-focus obviously that our song is about painful experiences, about love, frustrated love, or whatever, ang reader, siya mismo personally, iyahang i-reject ang fact nga tiwason ang poem because dili na siya ganahan sa topic. Okay? Dili siya gusto ma-feel ang emotions within the song. If your poetry is mushy or teary-eyed, your readers may openly rebel against your effort to invoke emotional response in them. If that happens, they will stop thinking about the issues you want to raise and will instead spend their energy trying to control their own gag reflex. I hope you understand that. Kantahay ako, nagbasa og poem. Tapos, while I was reading the poem, sugod pa lang daan, kahila ko naman kay ko. Of course, dili ko gustong hilak. So, adi na ko nitiwason, oy, kita po dani sa dughan. Kanina na mga lines, I know you have encountered that instances. Dili na ko nitiwason, oy, sakita ni sa dughan, oy. Di man makaya ka na mayingunanan ng mga instances. The reason is because there is too much sentimentality in the poem. Painful kayo siya for the reader. So, ikaw as a reader, gusto nimo nga dili ka maapektuhan sa pain within the poem, i-neglect nimo siya. So, tendency, dili siya tiwason. Okay? Next tip is use images. As I have said a while ago, bahalag free verse ang poem, ang importante na siya imagery because images is a vital element in poems. Without images, dili siya ma-consider as poem because poetry is a work of imagination. Take note of that. Poetry is a work of imagination. So kung walay imagery sa poem, asa man dapit ang imagination didto. So the goal of poem writers is to make their readers imagine or picture out what is the situation in the poem. Okay? We have to be a painter in words. We have to draw an image using words. That is the statement of Peg Lober. And according to her, we should be as writers, we should be a camera. Meaning to say, kita ang mag-picture out, kita ang mag-capture og image for the readers nga makita na nila while reading our poem. Again, using words. So when we are talking about images, we know, if you remember, that we have 5 sensory details or imagery. We have tactile, gustatory, kato sila, if you remember them, which are focusing on the sense of sight, hearing, smelling, touch, taste, and lastly, ikaunom ni siya, we have kinesiology, motion, movement. Let's have examples. Sa visual imagery, sunlight varnishes magnolia branches crimson. Kana siya nga line that is showing what is varnishing. Unsay nahitabo sa sunlight. Okay, so you are trying to imagine giunsa pag-varnish sa sunlight ang magnolia. Okay, so you will have your imagination. Next, vacuum cleaners wear and hum startles my ferret. So kung kana siya na line, maka-imagine ka na you are trying to, if you will read it, para masabtan nimo, kailangan nimo imagineon nga ikaw ang nakadungog ato. So ang imong sense of hearing is touch, which is under auditory imagery. Next, we have penguins slumber to their nests. Slumber means naghinay-hinay og lakaw or naghinay-hinay og adto. So, or slowly moving. So, kinesiology siya under because it shows movements of penguins who are slowly moving toward their nests. Okay, so dapat when you write your poems, there should be images. As much as possible, ang isa ka stanza na siya'y image para kada stanza na ay ma-imagine ang reader. Fifth tip, use metaphor and simile. Again, this is under figurative languages. All figurative languages actually are very important in writing poems, but most used figurative languages are metaphor and simile. After sir. Metaphor and simile. Mao ni ang pinaka ginagamit na figurative languages. Again, same with imagery. Metaphorical lines are important in poems, and poems cannot be considered poems themselves if there are no figurative languages. So, kailangan mo gamit ang metaphors. A metaphor is a statement that pretends one thing is really something else. For example, the lead singer is an elusive salamander. In this statement, it is not trying to say nga ang lead singer kay salamander. Wala sa nag-ingon nga ay kanang lead singer kay salamander na. No. But there is something about, or there is a characteristic that a salamander has nga pareho atong lead singer. There is a comparison nga direct, and there is no use of like or as. But in the second statement, simile, he was curious as a caterpillar, or he was curious like a caterpillar. There is already a comparison between objects using like. Okay? So, kailangan we will use that, metaphor and simile, in writing poems. Next tip, use concrete words instead of abstract words. Now, this is the reason why we will be using images. Something that people can perceive using their senses. If dili sa madungog, dili makita, dili ma-feel, dili matilawan, dili magunitan, it is not under concrete. It is under abstract. And pag once ingunana imong makita nga na kay word nga dili ma-perceive sa five senses, kailangan nimo to siya i-replace. A poet's concrete words help the reader get a picture of what the poem is talking about. When the reader has a picture of what the poem is talking about, he or she can better understand what the poet is talking about. So basically, if you as a writer naka-create na ka og imagination, you will help your readers to imagine kung unsa to imuha pong gi-imagine while you are writing. Kumbaga ba, there is this indirect connection between the writer and the reader. Kay pag-write sa writer, nag-imagine siya, and pagbasa sa reader, katong imagination sa writer, kung effective sa pagkasulat, mao pud to'y ma-imagine sa reader. Okay, if effective pagkasulat ang poem. Concrete words describe things that people experience with their senses. For example, orange, warm, and cat. We can see orange. We can feel warm. We can see a cat. So, kana sila are perceived by the senses, so it's concrete. Abstract words, on the other hand, refer to concepts or feelings. For example, something na dili ma-perceive sa five senses. Liberty, happy, love. Kana sila tanan, those are words nga pwede sila mag-represent og deeper meanings. It's just that dili sila perceivable sa five senses. Kumbaga ba, boring siya. Dili siya creative, dili siya imaginative. Okay? Next, what should we do now? We have to change abstract words into concrete words. Kailangan nato bag-uhon ang abstract words. So for example, you thought of writing, she felt happy. Instead of saying she felt happy, pwede nimo siya i-improve like, her smile spread like red tint on ripening tomatoes. So kana pa lang na statement, kanang smile diha nga word, ang smile is relax lang man, pero nagingon kag spread like red tint on ripening tomatoes. We all know nga pag mahinog ang tomatoes, halos whole part niya magpula na pag mahinog. pagpadulong pa lang siya mahinog, bisan pagpadulong pa siya mahinog, dako na nga part niya ang red. So, pag moingon tag smile spread like red tint, meaning to say, ang iyahang smile is wide. Okay? So, pag wide ang smile, meaning to say, she's happy. So, instead of saying na she felt happy, gipakita nimo unsa man ang happiness sa iyaha. Unsay evidence nga nagprove nga happy siya. Unsa day ang situation, unsa day ang picture. Okay? If sad siya, unsa day ang picture. So you have to put imagination on that. Unsaon man ako pagpakita ha nga sad ang isa ka tao. So mga ingon ana, okay? Next is seventh one. Communicate theme. In poems, theme refers to a different idea. Ang theme is about idea plus opinion, topic plus opinion. Meaning to say, for example, history shows ang atong idea diri is about history. Tapos you added your opinion about that, about the poem, about the history. For example, history shows that despite our claims to be peace-loving, unfortunately, each person secretly dreams of gaining glory through conflict. This one is a theme because it is not just an event but a statement about an event. It tells more about the event. It shows that the poet thinks about or what the poet thinks about the event, wherein the poet strives to show the reader or his or her theme during the entire poem, making use of literary techniques. So, kani nga theme nga imong nahuna-hunaan about, di ba, nag-set na ka goal, naghuna-huna na ka, mauni ang gusto na ko, ma-realize ako ang mga readers. That history shows blah 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 na. So, therefore, kailangan nimo mangitag paagi that in writing your poem, ma-communicate nimo na nga theme without telling them word per word. Okay? We will make a way nga makita nila nga ang mga tao kay they are trying to say nga gusto nila og peaceful na environment, pero they are making conflicts against each other. So kailangan nato na siya makita through images. That is the reason why we have to make use of imagery. Next one, we have subvert the ordinary. Pag moingon tag subvert, meaning to say, turn upside down. Meaning to say kanang, dili lang itong literal. Create something new. Improvise. Be creative. Originate ideas. Poet's strength is the ability to see what other people see every day in a new way. It doesn't mean that only intelligent people can become poets or good poem writers. Everyone can be good poem writers because it just takes imagination. We only have to look beyond what our two eyes see. Kung nakakita ka dihag duha ka tao, naglingkod ka sa, for example, naglingkod ka sa daplin sa kalsada, na iniagi babae nga kanang kulot ang buhok, tapos ang sanina kay murag isa ka semana na walay laba, mahalata jud nimo nga murag wala na siya ligo-ligo. Muna imong nakita. That's what you saw. And then as a writer, if you want to write something about that person nga nakita nimo, you have to think beyond. Unsa kay nahitabo sa iya ha? Nganong ingon ana siya. So that is why you came up with the reason nga ay wala na siya ligo-ligo guro isa ka semana, wala siya kalaba. Those are your imaginations already. People ride a bus every day. That's for example. Kabalo ka that people are riding bus every day. Tas nakakita jud ka na ng mga tao na halos kada buntag kay mo para og bus. That's what you see with your bare eyes. You have to make your interpretations. You have to be imaginative. A poet looks at the people on the bus and imagines scenes from their lives. A poet sees a 60-year-old woman and imagines a grandmother who runs marathons. A poet sees a 2-year-old boy and imagines him painting with ruby nail polish on the toilet seat, and his mother struggling to not respond in anger. Pero nagpuyo ra to sila. But you as a poet, you are making imaginations nga although naglingkod lang na sila, nagunahuna ka nga, pwede ni siya, kaning tigulangan ni ba, kaya kayo ni kadagan og marathon, Kanang mga inguna na lang na ihantil ba, kanang mga inguna na ng mga imaginations. I know you do that, unconsciously ginabuhat nato na. And that is a strength in writing. If makaremember mo nga ni come up mo yung nga situation, kaya ninyo mag-create og poem. So it just takes the ability to see what other people see in every day in a new way. Next tip, rhyme with extreme caution. We have to be careful, di ba? Pag be cautious, meaning to say, pag-amping, pagbantay permanente. Rhyme and meter can be dangerous if used the wrong way. Kung dili na to matarong o gamit ang rhyme o meter, ayaw na lang. Do not force yourself to use rhyme and meter if dili ka sure and if dili ka confident, especially if it is not required. Because poems do not require, or poetry do not require rhyming. Mo ganing na ay free verse. So if you are not comfortable with rhyming and pag feeling nimo OA ra or dili na siya effective kung i-rhyme pa, ayaw na lang. Okay? So we have to be careful in rhyming words. Beginning poets are advised to stick to free verse. So good pa man lang, mag-practice pa man lang, free verse sa. Ayaw sa pagdiretso gahawod-hawod og rhyme. Pero kung nagabuhat na gyud kag tula, just like ako second year high school pa yata ako. I wrote poems and songs. So, pwede na, along the way, kung sige nakagbuhat, nakabuo na kayo, nakasulat na isa ka notebook kan nga tula, pwede na kayo ka mag-rhyming. Okay, pero kung first time pa lang, mag-explore pa lang ka, mag-practice pa lang ka, ayaw sa. Free verse lang sa. It is hard enough to compose a poem. Lisod na ang magsulat og tula. Wala pa gani ka nag-rhyme, lisod na. How much more kung isabay nimo, nag-practice pa kagihimog tula, nag-practice pa jud kag rhyming. So, isa-isa lang. Ang priority sa nato when writing poem, imagery, imagination. Kana lang sa concrete words, images, and sounds, rhymes. Kato lang sa. Bahalag wala sa rhyme scheme. Next, the last tip, revise, revise, revise. Every time we write, bisag unsa pa na, letter, poems, short stories, whatever write-up is that, the last step in every writing process is revision or editing. Why? Bisan pagkapila nimo na usbon, naagyud na siya'y mali. How much more kung dili nimo usbon? Okay? Kanang mga balita sa TV nga nagkamali-mali, kapila na nagi-edit. Kanang mga libro nga nagkamali-mali, kapila na nagipang-edit, pero nganong naagi hapoy mali? Because there will always be a mistake. Why? Nganong naaman joy mistake at all times? Because we are imperfect, as simple as that. The moment you read that sentence, makaingon kag, okay na ni, wala na ni mali. Pero pagbasa ni mo balik pagkaugma, hala, mali man day ni. Matingala ka, nagsulat kag letter, giprint na nimo. Before nimo giprint, nag-review sa ka, okay na ni. Pag umag-print, dito pa ka nakabantay, nga na mali ang kama, wala na kuan, ana na mali og butang. Because again, we cannot see all mistakes at one glance. So we have to revise over and over again para matarong siya. Okay? To revise, number 1, ayaw siya i-revise diha-diha dayon. For example, karon ka nagsulat, ayaw siya i-revise dayon. Pahuway sa, pwede nimo siya i-edit para ma-finalize nimo nya, biyaan nimo. Pagkaugma or the next day, baliki siya and then read it again. Okay? So when you read it again, pag nakakay makakita ng mga kulang or mistakes, that's the time na imo siyang i-edit na pudog usab. Walang katapusang revision. And second step in revising, show your poem to others and ask for criticism. Kaning sa first part, mura ni siyang dili mura. This is a part of self-evaluation. You are evaluating yourself kung kabalo na ba jud ka. kung tama na ba jud imong output. That is why gibasa nimo balik. And at the same time, pag human nimo og review or evaluate it by yourself, dito na pud ka magpatabang sa uban tao, especially if nakay-kaila na expert ana, pwede ka magpa-check sa ilaha. And take note, we should accept criticism. Pag criticism gani, saway na. Naay positive ug negative criticism, pero pag criticism naagyud nay negative. Pasabot, naajud say makita nga mali. If moingon ra siya wala may mali, okay man ni. Ayaw dawat ana. Look for somebody nga makakita og mali. Because you will not learn if you will not hear any mistake from your output. Pasabot, kung moingon siya tama na, okay na, then perfect ka. Meaning to say, expert ka sa poem writing. So, nagsugod pa man lang ka. So, pag moingon siya, okay naman na, perfect naman na. Pangitaglain nga pwede mo criticize. Especially if you yourself, you know nga, di ka confident sa imong poem. Or even if you feel confident of your poem, you still need to hear the comments of other people. Okay, so those are the 10 tips in writing poems, which I hope you will be able to apply when you will be writing your own poems na. Okay, so kaninga link, this contains the different topics suggested for beginner writers. So, diri mo mangita og topics ninyo. Anyway, i-attach man gihapon ako nig-appeal and send nako sa task. Just so you know nga naa siya sa PowerPoint, napod siya dito sa Quipper. I-send man po nako ni sa Quipper. Okay? Any questions regarding sa topics?